Alright, now we're going to move on to Unit 4, Day 2 notes. Okay. Here we're going to have looking at inverses and composite inverse functions. So last year, when you guys were asked to find the inverse of a function, what we did was we switched x and y, and then you solved for y. Okay, so we're going to do the same exact thing here. Remember, f of x is just another way of saying y, so if you want to rewrite it, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so I'm going to switch x and y, and then try to get y by itself. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3, and then divide by -2. So I'll do that over here. Okay, sometimes you'll see it written like this, where we have -1/2 x plus 3/2. So it's kind of like the Hart method that we've talked about in class. Okay, so I'm going to put a little -1 there to indicate that it's the inverse. Okay. Now the second part that we're going to look at is we're going to pretty much plug our inverse into the original function. Okay, so here's my inverse. So f of x is equal to 2 times. I'm going to go ahead and take all this stuff, plug it in for the variable, plus 3. So I'm going to rewrite it. -1/2 x plus 3/2 plus 3. Okay, so what I have to do now is distribute this -2 out. So -2 times -1/2 is +1x. -2 times +3/2 gives me a -3. And then I have this plus 3 at the end. So notice it all turns out to be x. Okay, so if you take a function and have the composite of its inverse with its inverse, you'll always get equal to x. Okay, so how are we going to use this in our trig? We're going to do the same exact thing, but now you're going to look at some trig functions, okay, some composite inverse trig functions. Okay, so what do you notice about number 1? We have a sign in the arc sign. Okay, so again, you're pretty much doing what we did up here. Okay, you have sine of its inverse. So if you have sine of its inverse, it's going to pretty much be the argument itself here. So this is sine, and this is that little -1. So these two things cross each other out. So my final answer is 3/8. Okay, notice this is principal values. Okay, so here, principal value again, so I'm going to put a little note there. What do we know about cosecant and sine? They're reciprocals of each other. Okay? Reciprocals. So if you have reciprocals of each other, you're going to have the answer is going to be the reciprocal of the fraction. Okay, so it's 3/8. My answer is going to be 8/3. Alright, number 3. We're going to take a look at starting to have to draw things out. Okay, so they're telling us that the inverse cosine is 1/2. So from SOHCAHTOA, okay, this is adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, 1 is the adjacent side, 2 is the hypotenuse side. Now, since this is a principal values, cosine, we're limited to just quadrant 1 or 2. Since it's positive, it's definitely not 2. It's got to be in quadrant 1. So let me draw my triangle here. So my hypotenuse is going to be 2. The adjacent side is going to be 1. Okay, I could use the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so 1 squared plus something squared is equal to hypotenuse squared. So I solve it, and I get the square root of 3. That's going to be my opposite side. Okay, so you're going to use this information from the inside to draw your triangle, and then now you're going to evaluate the outside. So they eventually just want you to find the sine of the triangle here. Okay, the sine of the angle. So the sine of the angle is going to be opposite over your hypotenuse. So final answer is √3/2. Okay? Now number 4 is cosine of the arc sine of 4/5. Now, remember again, principal values, For sine, we're limited to just quadrant 1 and 4. And since it's a positive 4/5, I'm going to go ahead and cross out quadrant 4. It's got to be in quadrant 1, okay, because sine is positive in quadrant 1, sine is negative in quadrant 4. Okay, so again, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So let me go ahead and draw my angle. Opposite is 4, hypotenuse is 5. Hopefully you all know by now. This would be 3, 3, 4, 5 triangle. Okay, so I've used the inside to draw my triangle. Now I'm going to go ahead and evaluate the outside. So they want cosine of this angle. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that would be 3/5. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 5. Okay, so we have tangent of arc sine negative 4/5. So let's use the information on the inside to draw out what we have. Okay, so arc sine, we're focusing on just quadrant 1 or 2. Since it's negative, can't be in quadrant 1, it's got to be in quadrant 2. Okay, so remember sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so my opposite side is going to be negative 4. Hypotenuse is 5. That would make this adjacent side a 3. Okay, double check to make sure your picture makes sense. It does make sense that this 4 would be negative. Okay, so we've gotten our picture. Let's go ahead and take the tangent of this angle. So we're looking at TOA, opposite over adjacent. So my final answer in this one would be negative 4 over 3. All right, number 6, we have arc sine of negative 12 over 13. So opposite over hypotenuse. So again, sine, it's got to either be quadrant 1 or 4. It's negative, so it's got to be in quadrant 4. Okay, so opposite is negative 12. My hypotenuse is 13. This is a 5, 12, 13 triangle, so I'm going to put that 5 there. That's a Pythagorean triple. Okay, so we've used the inside to draw our picture. Now we're going to go ahead and take the cosine of our picture, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 5 over 13. All right, last two, we have tangent, TOA. It's positive, so can't be in quadrant 4, it's got to be in quadrant 1. So opposite is 8, adjacent is 6. This is actually a 3, 4, 5 triangle, but everything's just multiplied by 2, so this would be 10. Okay, so we've used our inside to draw the picture. Let's go ahead and take the sine of that, so opposite over hypotenuse. So we have 8 over 10, which simplifies down to 4 over 5. Lastly, we have cosine of arcsecant of 13/8. So I would rewrite this cosine, so secant, cosine. Oh, we don't even have to draw this. Remember that these two are reciprocals of each other. So if these two are reciprocals of each other, we're going to pretty much take the reciprocal of the argument, and that would be it. All right, numbers 9 through 16 are practice, so you guys are going to try this out on your own and check your answer on Blackboard.